There it
All
is.
right,
Now we're
here we
live.
go. Welcome to the Marketing Trench. We're live. Today, we're going to be talking about the digital marketing playbook for mortgage lenders, and we are very happy to have our featured guest, Bill Rice of Kaleidico. He specializes in helping mortgage lenders generate leads and convert their business from a brick and mortar operation to one that is targeting consumer direct in a digital environment, which is challenging. It's not a straightforward process at all, especially if you're
Yeah.
used to seeing people in real life. You know, we're living in a digital world, and it's not exactly a one-to-one conversion. So we're going to be talking about that. What does it look like to build your new storefront, which is your website, right? That's where the digital space exists, and some common flaws that people have when they're building these websites. Also, what it looks like to walk a customer through that journey when you're not talking to them face to face, but when you're maybe having an asynchronistic conversation with them via digital means, right? If you know what that means, you know what that means. And if you don't, you will find out. Bill, welcome to the Marketing Trench. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me as part of this. This is super awesome.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to having you on. And you came on a good day because Ricardo's here. So that means all the boring stuff will be gone.
But Ricardo's not here.
Oh, that's right. Ricardo's not here. Yeah, of course. Wow, that dig really landed. So Ricardo gets the last laugh. Yeah. So, Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you found this company, and what are you aiming at here with this business?
Sure. So we're Kaleidico. We're a lead generation agency. A little bit unique in the sense that we only focus on mortgage lenders and actually law firms. Got a long history in this business. Actually, I entered into the lending business around 2000. I was part of a team. Kind of came from outside of the business, part of a team. We didn't know any better, and we built an internet bank when that was starting to become a thing, and completely automated the HELOC process. Actually, so you come to our website, fill out a couple of, give us like 20 pieces of information. We do an instant approval, and believe it or not, we'd actually wire you money or a portion of that HELOC in 20 minutes. And so that's where I kind of first got the bug and the excitement and the passion around just servicing a consumer directly through the internet. It was kind of a unique experience, unique time. And so on that journey, as we were kind of doing that, we said, hey, in order to expand, we need to get into first mortgages. And then I discovered, again, a bunch of us dumb technologists doing fintech in the early days, realized that you couldn't do a first mortgage without a loan officer. And so we went through a process of trying to figure out how to make loan officers more efficient with internet leads. And of course, the timing was perfect. We hit right when sort of mortgage leads were becoming the booming thing. And so through a journey, I wandered into Quicken Loans for a little while, ran some sales teams there, did some additional home equity stuff there, and then saw this big need to be able to help loan officers be more efficient. So our first entry with Kaleidico, just to keep this story relatively short, is we built one of the first lead management systems, and we were kind of neck and neck with Leads 360 at the time, became Velocify. And we tended to service the large call centers, and Leads 360 tended to service the individual brokers out there in the world. And the VCs liked that they had more customers than we did, even though some of ours tended to be bigger. And so they got the funding, we didn't, and then boom, mortgage meltdown happened. All of our clients went out of business, and we pivoted to what we are today, which is that lead generation agency. We said, hey, we've seen a lot of leads come through this system. We think we know how this works. We know how to help organizations figure out how to build their own lead management or lead generation programs. And so that's the business we got into. So it's sort of a long journey because we've been at this for 20 plus years, but it's a journey that's kind of helped us. What we originally were doing very niche, as this pandemic hit, man, we've for the first time probably in our 20 plus years, we were in the perfect place, perfect time with the right product, and it's been really good. So we're helping a lot of lenders try to figure out how to build their own lead generation programs on those websites inside their organization. So.
Yeah, that's awesome,
Bill. So yeah, I met you at the AIM Fuse conference. We were on a panel about how to compete against call centers, how to compete and win against call centers. And I really love your approach. What was the biggest pain point? What was the biggest thing that you think was broken with lead gen that you think that you solved with Kaleidico? because lead gen companies are out there, right?
Yep.
A lot of people are, all loan officers say they want to do consumer direct. They end up going to some place and sharing leads and buying leads. What did you see in the industry that you thought, there's a better way to do this?
Yeah, I think there's always been a big misconception with mortgage leads and internet leads. Even early on, when we started Kaleidico as a lead management system, we believe that the only way to address the consumer directly, the only way to service or scale large internet mortgage lead volume was with the call center, with a bunch of phone calls to a bunch of leads. And when we pivoted off of that, one of the things that we saw, and to some degree we kind of learned from Leads 360 at the time, is that the mortgage broker was still kind of the largest piece of the market. And so we kind of set on a path to help those, and generally the lenders, would have 5 or more branches. So they had several branches. Early in the days, they had the things called net branches, which we don't talk about anymore. But that model was out there. And so we said, hey, they're intimidated by this mortgage lead thing, or they're buying leads sort of in a blind way. So let us specialize as an agency as going in there as a marketing expert, and help them to learn how to generate their own leads that are specific for their organization, and then to some degree how to work those and be successful with them. And so that was our little niche. And we're not a huge agency, but for organizations that were leaning forward, we could come in there and we could say, hey, we can take your website, we can show you how to generate your own leads, be less dependent on the lead providers. And even that blend of buying from the lead providers and working the internet leads you're generating, we can help you understand that that's a different lead and how to sort of address, build the systems, and work with those type of consumers.
So you guys have put out a playbook, a digital marketing playbook. There's actually a post on your website for lenders who are looking to make this move from brick and mortar to the consumer direct online based business. And you guys start with a website. And I have to imagine, based on the story you've told us so far, that there must have been some frustration on your end where you're generating all these leads, sending them to your clients, and they're not converting, and they're high intention, good leads. And it looks like, based on what I read over at Kaleidico, that you guys took that assessment and said the first point of failure is the website, so we have to get that right. So let's talk a little bit about that. You call this the new branch office, is how you position a website. At a high level, what do you think lenders who are making this pivot need to understand, and what do you think are the first steps there in getting that new digital branch right?
Yeah, I think there's two, again, misconceptions that usually position somebody to have a couple failures as they're trying to figure this out. One is there are a lot of ways to kind of get a quick and dirty website up really cheap, or even sort of lease websites and start to run traffic and do so. When you're doing this channel, you're going to make an investment, right? You're going to have to spend some dollars on marketing, but when you're using those kind of websites, you really you are leasing it, right? You're not actually building an asset for your organization. You're not building that branch office for your organization. And as a result, sometimes one, it just flat doesn't work as well. And then two, even if it works, like it's somebody else's, right? And you're paying every single month to lease that site. Now, there are some really good providers that have some ways to get started quick. I mean, we work very closely with folks like Lead Pops and everything, and they're on WordPress. We're a big advocate for that. WordPress is kind of an easy way, but kind of the first thing, just to sum it all up, is make sure that you're building and you're thinking of it as an asset, and you're actually investing in something you own ultimately, or you're going to get to a place where you own it. The second thing, and I think this is the one that hurts people the most, is when they think, hey, we need to go consumer direct, or we need to generate leads. They look at Bankrate, and they look at Zillow, and they look at LendingTree, and they're like, or NerdWallet, and they're like, oh, we have to build this huge content website, and we have to compete with the big boys like Rocket and Better and all these sort of folks. And they think that it's just out of their realm of possibility. Instead of, one of the first things we do is take an inventory of what they have. And so a lot of times you can leverage things that you have that they don't. One of the things that we love to put on websites that just draws in free traffic is branch pages, right? Because it's really easy for you to rank and draw in traffic and even pay for traffic for an FHA loan in Cincinnati if you have a Cincinnati branch page, right? And then the other piece to that is investing in the loan officer profile pages. and actually branding, because these are all little micro niche brands, right? You can kind of own your community. People land on that page, they feel like you're a part of the community, and they see all these loan officers that, again, are part of their community and might even know it. And so leveraging some things that have worked in retail, but that you can actually digitally create some similar experiences. And so often we see people put up a brand new website, they want to generate leads. There's no branch pages. They don't put any loan officers on there. And loan officers create a lot of activity. So if you look at your analytics, you're going to see your loan officers' names as your top searches when you launch your site, guaranteed.
Interesting.
What I like about your approach, and this, I think we kind of address this when you talk about how you compete with call centers. Call centers, a lot of times, they have an opportunity to identify high intent traffic, like they can get people to fill out a form. But when you're on the receiving end of that lead, there's a trust bridge that needs to be gapped, or there's a trust gap that needs to be bridged. I mean, so you can have this lead, but on the consumer's end, they're filling out a form and it's just kind of going into this black hole. But what you're doing is you're taking the consumer, you're saying, hey, listen, I know that this is your intent. So let's take your intent and let me show you that you can trust where you're going to fill out the form. Let me surround it with the person you're going to talk to, at the branch that you're going to talk to, at the company you're going to talk to. And you're really kind of making it a personalized thing, as opposed to, if you're buying leads, that consumer filled out a form somewhere and they don't know where they ended up and they don't know who they're going to talk to. So when you're trying to follow up with them, it's just some random call. And if they were highly qualified and they were sold to 4 other people, they've been getting just pounded with calls from people that they don't know. And so I love that. I love that you identify that and solve that. So you took the high intent, put them right into a high trust environment, and then said, okay, now engage with me and we can start a conversation about your mortgage.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of those, and I think this is some of the frustration with internet leads. Some of those other sites that I mentioned, and again, there's a role and there's a place for those sorts of things, and they can make those kind of investments. But oftentimes, those people are very early in the process. They're researching, they're trying to figure it out. They don't even know what it is to get a mortgage. You can capture those people that are really higher intent. You should feel very competitive and very confident in being able to compete against some of those bigger players, because just by putting faces on the website, I mean, think about the websites you go to for services and stuff. The minute you see an address, like, and a phone number and maybe a face or two that looks like real, there's so much more authenticity there and credibility. And like I said, the trust is bridged much quicker. So leverage those things. I mean, retail, I think too often mortgage brokers feel inferior. But you've got leverage in a lot of ways. And so, take inventory. I'm a big fan of this, and anything you do in life, just take inventory of the assets you have and figure out how you can kind of mix up those ingredients to make a better soup. So
I would love to talk a little bit more about what you have in mind when you say have a branch page and have pages dedicated to your loan officers, because when I hear that, I think of something like generic contact page for a branch, or your generic kind of bio page that every website has, but it's a total template. It's got, somebody's headshot, maybe some qualifications, maybe a little bio, and that's it. Yeah, but I have to imagine you have something more compelling in mind. So what might that look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. You're not too far away. I mean, just the fact that you have something there. One of the things that Google has moved to in recent years is they like to reward the local player. And so the two things that and I love working in patterns, but the basic pattern that I use for a branch page is a branch landing page. In a lot of ways, it'll look very similar to the home page, but the traffic that actually comes to the branch page, often that's the entry point. So it is kind of, for all intents and purposes, it's the homepage for someone in Cincinnati, right? And so on that, I want to immediately have some local, a lot of times we have pictures and those sorts of things. I want it to be local. I want people to recognize, oh, like I know where that is. And so it immediately has to have, as soon as they just hit it, it has to have a sense of feeling like, oh, this is local, what's going on here. And then, again, this is something that's often made as a mistake. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make that CTA, right? Because like 70% of the people that come to our website kind of are ready to do things, especially locally, or ready to reach out. So I'm going to go ahead and give them some call to actions, give them some lead paths. We leverage that kind of technology. Hey, are you going to purchase? You're going to refinance. And then the kind of the next thing in that pattern after that is very local information, right? In the sense of local address. I'm going to have a local phone number. I'm going to have a local branch manager and email. I'm a big fan of exposing contact information. Hey, I'm in the business of sales. My cell phone, my personal cell phone, has been on the internet since like 1998, right? So, and it's never caused me problems. So if you're a loan officer in sales, like, be generous with your contact information. Then below that, I like to show that I have a branch full of local loan officers. And so we do headshots and some of that local information. Once you go into the profile page, now one thing to understand about the branch page is most times from our analysis, most times people don't go through a directory and pick a loan officer. It's almost impossible. So they're going to go ahead and convert on the CTA. So the purpose of the loan officers below there is not to give them something to pick and choose who they think looks the prettiest, and they're going to go with that person. In that context, it's just to show, hey, we've got people here, they're local, they look like you and I, and just show that, right? It gives weight to a page and credibility. So most of that traffic is going to push through the lead path for the branch. It's going to come into the branch, and the branch is going to distribute the normal way they do leads. The individual loan officer page, the user experience there is, there's probably been a conversation, or one thing that people always forget is, people don't hand out business cards anymore, right? And if they do, they get thrown away. The way a referral happens today is, hey, if we're discussing something, you need to talk to Scott. And they're going to give you a first name and a last name, or they're going to just tell you, hey, Scott in Flat Rock can handle your mortgage or whatever. You're going to type it into Google. If I have that profile page, I'm going to be the #1 ranked for the loan officer. I'm going to get them on that page. And then it doesn't have to be too much more complicated than what you described. A picture, a personal story. Hopefully they've put their own flavor and voice into it. Contact information, direct contact information. I don't like to necessarily put a form on there. If I do, sometimes it will be a loan application, because sometimes loan officers like to push them through that. But that's kind of what we're trying to capture in that moment. We're just trying to capture referrals, loan officer activity, and push them in that page. The other thing that's really important, and I'll end on this, on loan officers, the other reason that you do this is because oftentimes, we all know in this industry, there's a fair amount of turnover, right, with loan officers. So if you hire a hotshot loan officer that's been somewhere else and you don't do that loan officer page, guess where all the traffic for all the activity that you're going to generate goes? To your competitor, the last person he worked with that didn't take his loan officer page down yet, right? So you also want to offset that. That's a big, and of course, once you're done with it, then obviously pull that profile page down, but make sure you get the loan officer's traffic.
And have you ever put like personal photos, not just professional photos, on some of these individual pages, like maybe a photo of the office of the loan officer doing a hobby, like out here it might be surfing, or maybe them with their family, or maybe if they're involved in like Habitat for Humanity, stuff to personalize them a little bit. And if you've done that kind of thing, have you noticed a higher conversion rate of any kind, or is that not really necessary? You can just stick with the professional headshot and the information you've already discussed.
I'll be honest with you, loan officers generally will not put that effort into it, particularly if it's kind of, they don't own the branch or they're not a part of that ownership. But I would, whenever we can get them to do a video or they can put some more voice into that, yeah, absolutely, it works better. Usually they won't put the effort into it. One of the things I advocate too, if the loan officer is so inclined, just like I tell our lenders, like, have a website that you own. If this is your, this is your bread and butter, this is your career, you're going to make it, again, make your own micro brand, right? So start to build out your own asset as an individual loan officer. You can still do good things, for your branch or for your lender. But it doesn't hurt to have kind of your own micro niche and brand, particularly if you're good at making content, or you're a star in front of the video camera. You can do some YouTube. We've seen some real successes where loan officers build some nice little micro brands And ultimately, they can build out their own branch opportunities that way. But at the very least, again, you own your traffic, and if you turn over or you go somewhere else or something changes in the comp plan, you still get to eat, right? Because you have your own brand.
Yeah. Oh, we got a guest. We got a guest coming onto the podcast.
Nice.
Hi.
That's awesome.
Just bothering me.
Giving Scott the bite, the little love nip as he harasses her.
Might scrape into the door here in a second.
So that's all very interesting. And I mean, the law of diminishing returns applies to everything. So, it could be the case that you spend too much time on your bio page and it's just not, particularly relevant. But I love your point that, there are some people who might be into, like Scott is really into pickleball because he's 100 years old and that's what 100-year-old people are into these days. And so Scott could maybe ostensibly position himself as the pickleball lender to pickleball lenders, for pickleball lenders, who knows, right? And that could really work for him if he really, really gets into it. But, outside of maybe having that kind of hyper niche where you're really involved in something, you're part of the community, maybe investing in that doesn't make sense. But I love your point about, just because it's online doesn't mean that there's not a physical aspect to it, which is a geographic, in this case, consideration. Just because it's online doesn't mean that people don't care about local things and seeing people that look like them. And, that's very important and often overlooked. And you guys, in your experience, you've seen that actually leads to higher conversions as well. Let's talk a little bit about that. So how do you or how does somebody in this digital marketing playbook drive high intent traffic to their site? What are some tactics and strategies you guys like to employ, especially over and against the call centers of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, here is always nice to do a little bit of an inventory and also, drive down some misunderstandings about, what traffic costs or what some of these things cost. So when we do that inventory, a lot of times where we actually end up starting is email, believe it or not, because almost all of us in this, business, particularly loan officers, you got a CRM, it's full of names and contacts. And a lot of times those are unresponsive or maybe aged opportunities or just past clients. And so oftentimes we want to see, do you have a list? Have you maintained it to some degree? Even if you haven't, sometimes we can build some strategies to go out to past clients and generate referrals. Like if I'm starving and having a tight month, like I'm going to definitely go to my past clients and get some referrals. And that's just as simple as saying, hey, I appreciate you haven't talked in a long time. Things are, going up or down in the market. If you have anybody that wants to talk about that, let me know. And it's just real simple to do that. You can do more concerted strategies. So if you've got, aged leads in there or you've got unresponsive leads in there, sometimes it makes sense to build that sequence. So that's almost free traffic, right? Just takes a little work, a little elbow grease and write some emails and push those out. So that's kind of free. Nobody ever thinks about it. Everybody, for whatever reason, thinks it's too much work. So a lot of times that one gets discarded or forgotten about. The other one, and the second one that I go to, and I always think in terms of sort of short term and then building investments for the long term. If you want short term, which is how most of us think, because we get paid every month, right, based on our production. And so I'm going to go to Google Ads. And so the misconception here is that you can't compete with Rocket, on Google Ads or whoever the big advertisers are out there. But again, taking that very niche area, you can geo-target, you can get even more specific, you can hit little niches. I've seen loan officers be really productive hitting little niches like doctor loans, right? Or VA loans are pretty expensive on Google Ads. But again, Google Ads is a quick and easy way. The only caveat to that is that generally to get the results you need, you're probably going to need an expert because Google Ads is getting more and more complex in the back end, but experts are not very expensive. I mean, usually, you're paying a few $100s for someone to set up and manage even a really good PPC manager. And then of course you've got the spend itself, but putting together a package where you're spending like $3,000, which is what, a couple of loans at the best, and you break even, you can be effective and get yourself a handful of leads at the loan officer level. And even at the lender level, you don't have to go much beyond that, and you can get 50, 60, 100 leads pretty easy through that channel. So, and then building for the long term, of course, there's nothing that beats good old-fashioned content and SEO. And again, you put your own flavor and angle on it, and don't be intimidated. If you just start writing about, there's really two things that I like to write about. is the loan programs themselves. There's a lot of nuance and context around that. You put your own voice on it. You have a website that sort of locally orients you. Again, Google likes to reward the local player. So when somebody searches in a local area for even very specific, highly competitive loan programs, oftentimes you'll get a little piece of that pie. And then the second piece there that I like to write about is the questions. And everybody talks about this. What are the questions? So you can get, we've talked in our session about picking up the carnage of the call center. And so what call centers do is they actually churn out and disapprove and frustrate a bunch of people that go back out, and they looking like, why was my income, my bank statements not sufficient? Like, why was my, whatever they told me was wrong? They go looking for that, and you can pick off, like, so if you're in the non-QM business right now, man, there's some super cheap, easy traffic to be picked off there. YouTube, another great place, second biggest search engine. Most people, including myself, when I want to learn something, a lot of times I go to YouTube first. So again, using the same sort of strategy, but just getting in front of the camera, doing, it's a little counterintuitive too. Facebook's like really short, but YouTube, about 15 minutes. You can really dig into a topic. You can also use those YouTube videos for email. It really personalizes things. So YouTube's another one. And then, believe it or not, the very last thing that I wade into, because I think you kind of mentioned this before, there's a lot of investment for kind of so-so return, and that's just social media in general. So for the average loan officer, unless you just kind of love it and breathe it and understand the channel, and it's just a part of your personality, believe it or not, Facebook, Instagram, all those things are pretty hard to get going at a level that's going to be productive for you, because it's a total interrupt channel, right? So there's one strategy, interrupt them or become an influencer, and both of those take time and energy and personality.
Yeah, I'd like to unpack and build on a bunch of that stuff. You just packed so much meat into like a really short explanation, and you're 100% right on all of that stuff. The one of the things that we talk about, and we've done a couple of episodes on this, is understanding consumer intent. And on Google, the consumer is already problem aware, and they're already partially solution aware. So they're looking for a provider to help them with the solution that they've already identified. And that's why Google is so important. And people say, yeah, it's more expensive. Well, it's more expensive, but you have to think of things in the scope of cost of acquisition. Yeah. And the cost of acquisition for a mortgage loan, it's traditionally been right around that $1,000 mark, but anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 in order to get a closed loan is going to be, you're going to be doing really, really well. When you talk about expensive on Google, you're talking $20, $25 clicks as opposed to $2 clicks on Facebook, but right. Those are high intent traffic, and they're looking for a specific solution. So you don't need many of those clicks in order to get to somebody who's really motivated and really ready to roll, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really important one. People love to do Facebook, and I just talked to somebody earlier today, and they were like, "Yeah, we're going to run Facebook ads," and I'm like, okay, if you've never done any pay-per-click before, running Facebook ads seems like a good idea, but it really isn't. It's interruption marketing. They're not there looking for loans. In order to get their attention and get them to take action, you have to be a little deceptive or a little misleading. Because if you just said, you should buy a home and you should do it with me, that's not exciting. Nobody's going to click on that, and they're not going to click through. You have to use like down payment assistance, or, should I buy quiz or something like that is a little more creative and a little better, but that's still a long game. Yeah. And there's still a conversion piece that needs to take place there. So, those were really the big points that I wanted to make. Is people shy away from Google, and you're 100% right. You need somebody that knows what they're doing. Maybe somebody at Kaleidico could help, but you need somebody that understands that platform. But it's okay to spend $800 to $1,000 in paid traffic in order to close one loan. And that's where you should have your expectations, because they're on Google, you're not going to have that 6 to 18 month maybe period where is the sweet spot. A lot of organic traffic and a lot of Facebook traffic, organic traffic especially, a lot of that is probably 6 to 18 months away because they're just doing their homework, they're doing their research. But that timeline is exponentially escalated on Google. They already know what they want, and they're just looking for somebody to help them with it, for the most part, right? It much more than any of these other much more than any of these other mediums. And I would say the same thing with YouTube, right? YouTube is usually they're problem aware, and they're typically solution aware. They're just looking for the person to provide them with that solution. And I love video for that, because like you said, there's nothing better than not only showing your personality, but them getting to experience your personality through video. Is just one of the best trust assets that you can use for converting that traffic or converting that click into a conversation, which is ultimately the goal here. That's all we're really talking about, is trying to convert clicks into conversations. We're using the word lead. I hate the word lead, because they're not leads. They're people that are looking for information, and you have that specialized knowledge and information. And our goal as professionals, mortgage professionals, should literally only be the one that they ask the questions to, because that gives you an opportunity to show your knowledge, show your experience, listen to them, identify their needs, and earn that trust. So there are clicks in this equation, but conversations are where we make our money, right? And these trust assets and this path that we take them down is so vitally important. But the problem is, all of the vendors in our space, they won't have this conversation with you, because that makes it sound too hard. It makes it sound complex. They're just like, oh yeah, we can get you. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I guess because I'm just in the business, every day if I go on Facebook, $2 leads from Facebook, and you're just like, yeah, that's worth way more than that is on the price of your soul, to invest in a campaign like that, unless you're fully prepared to take that thing and leverage that long game. So yeah, this is why you and I connected, Bill. You've really got this dialed. You're doing it the right way. You're putting the right things in place. And it sounds like you're having the conversations with your clients, and managing their expectations and setting up realistic expectations that, listen, we do these things, we spend this money, we will have some short-term gains, but we're also working on your long game. Yep. And the more we do this, the more we're building up your long game. And we haven't even talked about the database. Right? Yeah. When you're doing this paid traffic and you're building this database, now you've got this database that you can start marketing to. And if you're creating content, you're sending that out to that database. Hey, I'm still here. I'm still an expert. I'm still trustworthy. When you're ready, I'm here to answer your questions. So that's why I love your approach.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. I mean, in a lot of ways, if you're comfortable with content, I know you're a big believer in content. The other thing that keep in mind, and why this investment is good, and why you can kind of do a few of these channels, the more they hear your voice, the more they hear the way you talk and the way you think, they come pre-sold, right? When you buy a lead, or you are less, are more superficial, you just kind of drive in traffic, and you don't have any content there for them to consume. They come with all the baggage of everything the crazy uncle told them, or Aunt Susie told them about their experience, or some other lender who wasn't as experienced, or loan officer who wasn't experienced. They come with all that baggage. But if they're actually seeing you and coming to you through your lens, through your content, and when they come there, they're already speaking your language, right? They're shaking their head as soon as you start talking, because they've already heard it. It's kind of a subconscious thing, and they believe in it. That's why they reached out to you. So there's a lot of good things that's worth that investment. And man, loan officers and the lenders, who build the organizations around these loan officers, like, you guys are experts. Like, lead with that. You get into the B2B space and the other space, they talk about, being the expert all the time, and we just don't talk about it enough in the mortgage industry. And that's what loan officers are. That's what lenders are. We're experts, and you guys should lead with confidence and put some of that content out there. Even if it's the same content of other people. It's been covered, sure, but let people come through your lens.
Yeah, use your voice on it. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's this is such especially when rates do what they did now in the last year, people get into this transactional mindset, and it's just I need to do the transaction. I need to do the transaction. They're not thinking about those trust assets. But you said it 100%. We're in the know, like, and trust business, right? For the most part. I mean, there are consumers that will, go on these call centers, and they're easy enough that they'll just slide through and they don't ask any questions. They're not getting any financial education. They're not getting any options given to them. They're taking what they're giving. They're not asking questions. And if their credit and income is good, then they're going to slide through, but they're not any better off for it. But we as professionals in loan officers and real estate agents, even, those aren't the relationships that we're building. We're trying to build relationships that go beyond the transaction, because I'm going to use the L word. Every single lead is an opportunity to earn somebody's trust, whether they're ready or not. And then that becomes a referral source for you. Yeah. Whether or not there's a transaction there, it's still an opportunity to show them that you're an expertise, or that you're an expert. And then, quite frankly, people feel good about being able to tell their friends, hey, you know what? I met this person. They're really, really cool. They'll answer your questions for you. Right. And so then you're making them look good. There's so many long game opportunities in this whole content marketing and the paid, whether you're using paid traffic to engage and start those conversations or not. There's just so much value in the long game and taking the time to build relationships with these things and thinking outside of the transactional box.
Yeah. Well, and Scott, I really love your point about how people might use these kind of resources when they're making an introduction. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was introducing your business partner, Josh, to my own father, because we're in a transaction where I think Josh could be useful, right? And one of the first things I did to validate who Josh was and his expertise was I went to YouTube and I pulled up a video of him talking about the housing market. And there are, a million videos of people talking about the housing market right now. But I'm interested in introducing Josh to my father. So I found one of the videos where he was really doing a great job of kind of fleshing out current market conditions. And I just included it as a hyperlink. I'm like, hey, this is Josh Lewis. Check out his thoughts on the housing market to get a sense of who he is and how he thinks about this stuff. I think he's really smart. You should talk to him. And that's all I have to say. Now I have a short email. I prefer short emails. I think most people do. And then I let, if my dad wants to do the work of actually, checking out this person that I have referred him to, he can just click on the link and then literally let Josh speak for himself. Right. Yeah. And so I think that's such a powerful resource. Along these lines of like handling leads and introductions, I want to pivot to something you were talking about with us, Bill, which is in the sales process, there are ideas that you have, philosophies you have around handling leads. And one of the first things that jumped out to me was your argument that the whole speed to lead idea is misleading. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, speed to lead has been a cliche term that we've been talking about for years. And early on, there was a good case that, the speed to lead, because telephone, was the primary means of communication. That's what consumers were comfortable with. That's what lenders did. That's obviously the leverage that call centers brought to the whole operation. But that just kind of set around and continues to be persistent. And there's some data and some studies that kind of go around that. But I think where people, and from our own testing, where we need to sort of broaden the understanding of that term is follow-up. Instant follow-up is essential. But the speed to lead in the context of being the first one to make a phone call to that person is absolutely dead. And anybody that's in the business can vouch for that. One, you're never going to win that battle. And two, I would say the vast majority of the market will absolutely not answer a phone call. I mean, as it gets younger, it gets even worse. Like my kids don't even know their phone actually makes phone calls, right? Because that's just not the way it's right? And the other thing that's happened too, and I think, again, loan officers, especially old school folks like us that have been around for a while, we kind of think that text messaging is rude, but it's not. It's actually kind of the preferred, like, polite way to reach out to someone. And that's given us, anywhere from 20 to 40% contact and response rates, because of the simple fact that, and you got to think about the user experience. A lot of times we don't sort of start there, but you fill out a lead, right? You probably filled out a lead and went through the form for the convenience factor that I don't really have time to go into this right now, but this is definitely something that I need to get some information about. So you bomb me with a bunch of phone calls. Now my whole demeanor has changed. I'm a little bit frustrated. My phone's blowing up. I really don't know how to make it stop, right? But if you're the lender that comes through with the considerate approach where you say, hey, toss out an email, got your inquiry, one of our loan officers is taking a look at it. We're going to be able to get you back with you with some information. We're going to want to schedule a time to talk at some point. And then a few minutes later, you hit them with a text message. Hey, I'm your loan officer. Wanted to schedule a good time. Again, I'm driving everything to an appointment because, again, this is, especially through the pandemic, this is what our world has become. People are very comfortable with Zoom calls. They're very comfortable, like everything, like Calendly just must have blown up. Like everybody got this. Like even the consumer, right? It used to be a B2B thing. Now it's the consumer got super conditioned. So dropping that Calendly link in there and say, hey, at your convenience, schedule anything that works for you. And we're getting a ton of response. So you're getting instant follow-up. They're feeling like they're heard. You put some control back in their hands immediately. And you also, in that process of communicating like that, you're actually telling them that, hey, I'm an expert and I'm putting some time and I'm looking through this information and I'm doing some research. So there's some work involved. So I think it also sets a good expectation there. And then I go ahead and reach out with a phone call, either later that afternoon, maybe even the next day. A lot of times, and again, people have different philosophies on that. I love voicemail drops. Again, not intrusive, gives the control back to the consumer. Some people don't like that because they feel like it's sneaky. I think it's a considerate way, so I don't bomb their phone. But whether you make a phone call or you do a voicemail drop, let them hear your voice. And then the second email, not to give away all my secret sequences, but that second email always has a video in it. And it says, hey, this is who I am. This is what I think about. This is why it's important for us to get together. Have you scheduled that meeting yet? So again, the whole cadence to me for that speed to lead, be considerate, put control in their hands, let them schedule an appointment that's convenient for them. And my second move is to actually get in front of them with video and show them who I am and how I think and whether or not, we can have a good conversation. And that seems to be the magic.
Yeah, Bill, I love that you mentioned the Calendly link because that was one of the things that shocked me the most over the last couple of years is consumers will schedule a time to talk to you on your Calendly link.
Yeah.
And you're completely empowering them. It's their time. You're not going back and forth. Well, what's the best time? What's the old I have Tuesday available at 1 or 3, which is the best time for you? And you're going back and forth with these people. No, listen, here's a link. Jump on my calendar. Let me know the best time. I'm going to send you a Zoom link. You and I are going to have a face-to-face conversation. The pandemic has been the single greatest thing that ever happened to video conferencing that has ever happened. And now we can make real personal connections over Zoom calls, and it's not foreign to anybody. Everybody knows what a Zoom call is. Everybody in America, everybody in the world knows what a Zoom call is now. So if you're like, hey, let's have a face-to-face conversation at your convenience, click this link. It is so powerful, and yet so many people don't know about it, and they're not using that as part of their conversion or conversation process. So that's a huge takeaway. And even the video, you can even deliver video in SMS now.
Yep.
Or MMS, right? So you can do a little video and it can be, I don't know how much automation you use, but I was on a call earlier with the guys at Bonzo.
Yep.
right? I think we're going to have Jason on here on one of the episodes.
Good.
And really cool, really smart people. But you can do a little video that you can send on a text. Hey, this is Scott. I got your information. I'm really looking forward to talking to you. Click on that link right in this text. Schedule a time on my calendar. Let's jump on a Zoom call. That's automated. That's out. It's not speed to lead. It's speed to acknowledging the contact and then empowering the consumer to schedule something on their time and then personalizing it. And, I just love these things because you're right. I still think that people think that they got to get on the phone. And, you've been in this game long enough. You remember, well, when you get the lead, they're in front of their computer, so you should call them right away. Yep. And you're like, no, they're at work and their boss doesn't know that they're filling out forms online.
Totally.
They're not going to answer that call,
Yeah.
or they're in bed at night. There's a lot of calls that come in at night, totally. And you don't want their phone ringing. So.
Yeah. And weekends and and I think there's a mindset that goes along with this too. So we won't overpitch Bonzo, but we actually use Bonzo ourselves and we advocate for our lenders. So if you reach out to Kaleidico, and I think this is the perfect market for loan officers to kind of adjust and feel comfortable adjusting this mindset. If you reach out to Kaleidico, we have completely automated that initial outreach. And until you schedule a discovery session with you, we're not even, and this is secret sauce, and this probably maybe sound a little bit bad, but we're transparent and open. We don't think about you until you schedule a discovery session, because I want my sales reps only having discussions with people that want to have discussions with us. I don't want them chasing leads. I don't want them wasting time in their database, sending out emails that nobody's reading, making phone calls that nobody wants to answer. And I think loan officers in this market is rich. There's lots of leads. Start to build your systems so that you can do things like that and you can be efficient in different markets. But right now, you should only be, really focusing your attention in those high value, expensive resources on having real discussions with consumers that want to talk to you, right? So don't
showing up those Calendly appointments.
Yeah, totally.
That's where you should be spending your time.
Yeah, and build a ghost sequence, because they will ghost you, right? So when they ghost you, again, put that into automation. Don't chase those people down. Just have a sequence that says, hey, seems like that wasn't a great time. Let's do it again, and again, don't worry about it.
And don't take them ghosting you as they're ignoring you or they don't like you, because the overwhelming majority of the time they're just not ready yet.
Yep.
They did it because they wanted to get early information. It was funny. I was actually just talking to Jason at Bonzo yesterday, and I was telling him about this part of this. So Ricardo, who's not here, and even though we dig on him every once in a while, he comes up with a decent idea. So one of our sequences that we came up with a couple of years ago was a stay in touch. It was a stay in touch email, and the subject line was stay in touch, or it was a text and an email, and it just said, hey, I'm going to take your no response as a not now or I'm not ready. That's perfectly okay. Some of my best clients, it takes 2, 4, 6, 12 months until they're ready. So I just want to let you know, we're going to stay in touch. We'll talk to you we'll send you something once a month, remind you that we're still here. And then you set up that automation. And especially if you're creating content, then you're sending that to them once a month or whatever, just staying top of mind. But no, I love this, man. You're saying all of the things that, took me years and years of trial and error and figuring it out. So one of the reasons I get excited about talking to people like you is it validates that same hard trail of tears journey that I've been on for over a decade of consumer direct engagement, and it's evolved a lot in the last 10 years. It's evolved a lot, I would say, in the last 3 years, and I would say it's evolved exponentially in the last year because of the pandemic, because it really made a lot of these things that we knew were convenient ways to communicate with consumers. It made it mainstream and it made it normal. And I think it really elevated it elevated the conversation and it increased our conversion significantly.
Yeah. Well, one thing too, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, and I think sometimes when you watch one of these conversations, you hear all these great ideas, you get just as overwhelmed because there's so many things you could do, there's so many things you should do. We always advocate, particularly if you're kind of doing it by yourself or you're not doing it with a supporting agency or something like that. And you can definitely accomplish big things, independently as a loan officer or just figuring it out as a lender yourself. But just take a little facet, just get one step at a time and iterate. Like if you can you will beat like 80% of the market if you just, when you get a lead, automate an instant email reply that says, hey, I got this, I'm taking a look at it, look for my call, I'm going to try to call you in the next few hours. Just do that one email and make it automated, and you'll beat like 80% and deliver a better experience than probably 80% of the industry. So take like a little piece, get a little piece right, and do it. Maybe you've got a database of emails, just write 3 emails and send 3 emails in a row to that dead database, and you'll probably get a handful of leads out of that. So just take one little thing, build on it, and then just iterate until you get all these great things in order. But don't be intimidated by you don't have to boil the ocean. Get one little thing, it'll make a huge impact.
I love that. Yeah. No, you're definitely at 80% with an email. That goes up to about 97% with a text when you accompany it with a text, especially with new leads that are coming in.
Yeah.
Old leads for sure. You want to do the email, but yeah. Where are we at, Dustin? We're about at time here.
Yeah. So, Bill, I want to use the last couple of minutes here and let you talk a little bit about Kaleidico. And I'm especially interested, anyone who's listening to this podcast this far, probably high intent, very interested in pivoting their mortgage operation from brick and mortar based to digital based. When is a good time for someone in this position to reach out to you? Who is an ideal client for you guys? Just kind of give our listeners a sense of whether or not they might be a good fit for you or vice versa.
Yeah, there's kind of two good fits, and there's kind of a third one that we're trying to address, and we still love talking to. So kind of our bread and butter is a lender that's probably anywhere from 3 to 10-ish branches. And they've been traditional retail model, and they're trying to figure out consumer direct, and they're trying to figure out how to lay it in their organization without turning it completely on its head. So we love those kind of problem sets. We've got a playbook that works for that. We also like to tuck in with really large lenders that are looking for a more traditional lead generator, whether that's us helping them increase the volume of leads that they're providing to their larger platform, or we're just one of the feeders, right? So we have some models that allow us to, on a per lead basis, feed into those bigger models as well. And then the other people that we love to talk to, and this is why we were at AIM Fuse, is we love the branch managers. We love the 1 or 2 loan officers that are forward leaning. They get the internet. They like the internet. Maybe they're a native of the internet, and they want to sort of just, how can I leverage this, and how can I build a business off of this? And so we've got a ton of content on our website. You cited some of that. We got loan officer playbooks. We got mortgage playbooks. We're building out some more sort of formal education around those things. We also have quite a few YouTube videos on my personal channel, and we're getting ready to ramp that up as well, where we kind of take you through a bunch of conversations kind of like this. So if you look for Bill Rice on YouTube, you do anything, if you're interested in age leads, I'm a big fan of age leads and how to leverage those. So if you search for age leads, you're going to find a bunch of my content. So we love, and we're willing to get on phone calls and talk to those people and help them sort it out, so we can get them to a size that we can maybe take over and help them scale a little bit larger. But yeah, kind of our bread and butter is that half dozen to a dozen branches, and they're trying to find that consumer direct model.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So if that's you're listening to this and you say, that's me, and I want to talk to Bill, he's singing my song. You can find Bill over at kaleidico.com. That's spelled KALEIDICO, kaleidico.com. You can, like he just said, look on YouTube for Bill Rice. and find his videos, and there will be links there. We'll also have links in the show notes if that's helpful to you. And by the way, if you're listening to this on YouTube and you are not yet a subscriber, it would help us a lot if you would like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll notify you when we got new videos coming out. We normally release a video every Friday around 1 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, we would appreciate building that subscriber base up. We're trying to get to 100. So if you are listening and you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe, and tell your friends about it too. You can find Scott over at findmywayhome.com. He's got fantastic resources, especially if you're a lender listening to this podcast. He's got some really great write-ups, some great content over there. And also you can find his YouTube page. Find My Way Home has a YouTube page. We link to it on our YouTube page. And they've got tremendous resources, video content there for you as well. If you're building your business, trying to learn how to position your brand, anything like that. Or maybe you're just trying to figure out, hey, I'm a lender. What the heck kind of videos should I be creating? Pay attention to what they're doing over at Find My Way Home. You can also find Scott's other business, Buywise Mortgage. Look them up on YouTube and just basically steal their content. It's really good. So you should just do everything. Whatever Josh Lewis is doing,
encourage it.
Do that. Yes. What do they say? Imitation's the highest form of flattery, something like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Modify it 30% and Google considers it original.
There you go.
That's my motto.
That one's for free. Awesome. And then you can find me, my team over at lighthouseescrow.com. If you are thinking about refinancing your home, we'd love to work with you. If you're thinking about selling or buying a home in California, we'd love to work with you. And if you're trying to figure out, hey, I'm going to sell my house, how much money can I walk away with? Lighthouseescrow.com, go down a couple scrolls, find that free closing cost estimator there. We'll tell you how much cash you could walk away with. And then finally, our invisible.
If you're desperate and have no other options, you can find moderately interesting information at ricardobueno.com. He has to show up to get the white glove service. So.
ricardobueno.com for our long lost. He's actually giving a speech at some conference because he's famous and people care about what he has to say.
Ricardo's brilliant. Absolutely go there. Yes.
Yeah. So
we don't say that to his face.
No, we won't. No, we can only say that when he's not around. But
that's right.
He is around. He's a drunk that we don't like to talk to. Well, that's all for today. Bill, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Good to see you again, man.
Real joy. All right, guys. That's all. Until next time, this has been the Marketing Trench.
See ya.